All right, today we are joined by Mr. Tom Grace from Black Iron Strength. What Black Iron is best known for to the strength and conditioning community is their adjustable dumbbells, their custom dumbbells, which are revolving, little thicker grip, but also they're becoming more and more known within the government fitness industry, strength and conditioning in universities, professional teams, and they're the only ones with a patent for antimicrobial copper coating on their handles, which has been shown by, I believe it's the FDA, to be
No, it's the
both beneficial
EPA.
by the
I'll
EPA
explain
for
that.
killing viruses and bacteria. So, Tom, take it away as to who you are and Black Iron Strength.
Well, I'm Tom Grace, and I am the owner and founder of Black Iron Strength. And it's hard for me to believe that Black Iron Strength is now going into its 21st year of, as a company. We actually started with the concept in 1999, and our first products were sold in the year 2000. So, I look at 2021 and it's just been a whirlwind of, developing new products and, listening to coaches and strength professionals, as to what they want. So, we're here to support the strength profession with, what we always say is we believe that we're putting out the world's best product in the different categories that we sell equipment in. And we know we can't be everything to everybody, but with what we do, we try and make sure we're number one.
See, that's really good. And some of the teams that Black Iron is outfitting are teams like the current reigning Super Bowl champions who get to defend their Super Bowl this upcoming Sunday.
That's correct.
You're in NASA. Yeah, you're at NASA. You're also, I believe I saw on your Instagram page, was it FBI or was it Langley, the CIA has your stuff. So it's pretty cool when you're getting into places like this. So how about giving people who aren't as familiar with Black Iron just a little bit as to what the vision and kind of purpose of Black Iron Strength is for helping coaches?
Well, when we started in the year 2000, because I was once, on the strength coaching side, when I was at grad school at Penn State, I was one of the assistant strength coaches back in the late 80s. And I was still in the U.S. Army, so I was en route to teach at West Point, and I ended up being the director of instruction for the whole phys ed department at the U.S. Military Academy. And my last year there is when they did the early out option during the Clinton administration peace dividend when they were downsizing the U.S. Army. So I was actually able to get a early retirement package and, was essentially the main influencer of what was bought for the phys ed department at West Point. So I was going to the trade shows, knew what people were looking for, and, started on that journey when I took that package and went to the civilian side of the industry. But what strength coaches told me, and this was the time when dumbbells, plates, a lot of our industry was moving to Asia. And with that, they were going to rubber and they were going to urethane, which I don't have any problem with either one of those materials. Both those materials have drawbacks, but the biggest drawback is how big in dumbbells, when you're with rubber or urethane going from side to side, these things just start growing exponentially. And it's the old joke of when we were kids, when you would ask somebody, what weighs more, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers? Well, they both weigh 1 pound, but there's a huge difference in the volume that they take up. Well, the challenge with an 80 to 100 pound dumbbell that's urethane or rubber is these things are just huge. Where with solid steel, you get a much tighter, smaller package. And the advantage with that smaller, tighter package is it's much easier to balance and control, especially with the heavier weight, when you've got a narrow outside to outside dimension, and it's a heck of a lot easier to spot. So when we were interviewing the strength coaches, we clearly found that they had a preference for a tighter package, which led us to solid steel. Now, we even looked at lead at one time. The challenge with lead is there are so many Environmental Protection Agency restrictions when you're dealing with lead, that we just said this just is not an option with getting around the manufacturing in a USA manufacturing plant. So steel clearly became the best choice. So we looked at the whole industry and we said, how can we turn this upside down and how can we make a better product? So with the dumbbells, we went with solid steel, tighter package, and then we looked at different handle choices. So the coaches, especially the ones that deal with football players, the football players just have monster hands. And the standard grip dumbbell was just, quite frankly, too small. They were overwrapping the handle. So we started testing off thicker grips and went to different schools and pro teams. And we came up with what the general favorite was that would just kind of lay right in the larger hands of the athletes where they weren't over gripping, and it helped them as they were going down the forearm where it wasn't putting too much pressure on the ulnar nerve crossing the elbow. It was a lot more comfortable, and from a health and safety standpoint, the athletes liked that. So we had different handle choices, whether it's the standard handle, the thick fixed, or the thick rotational. And then we started looking at the kettlebell, and we realized that, there's, quite frankly, a way to make a better kettlebell. And we've certainly had resistance from what I call the old school kettlebell people, but a round ball, a cast iron ball, puts pinpoint pressure on the outside of the forearm or the inside, where a flat edge, actually lays or lies flat on those surfaces, so it doesn't put pinpoint pressure. So we looked at making a sleeker design. And then we also realized, with talking to the coaches, that with them wanting to generate more power, if we put a rotating handle on our kettlebell, they would actually be able to move faster and safer because they no longer have to do a catch and release as they're going up over the head. They can hold on to it because the handle's rotating and therefore generate more power. It's no different than why people want an Olympic bar to rotate. So I won't say we were the first ones to do that. That was actually a patented item back in the early 1900s. We actually looked up the patent on that. So we were not the first ones that did the rotating handle on the kettlebell. But I think what we did is we brought back an idea and made it more mainstream. And our kettlebells do extremely well, but they're a lot more expensive because they aren't coming out of a mold with cast iron overseas. It's machine steel. It's very geometrically correct edges on it, and it's got the rotating handle, and you've got handle choices. between the chrome and the antimicrobial copper are thick bars. We were the first ones that did the rotating handles. And on all these things, we have US patents. We were the first that did quality knurling. And then we put a great finish on there with the military hard chrome, where the initial bars were basically baked on paint. They were plumbing tubing, and they were welded onto very sloppy, weight ends. So we actually notched up our thick bars to where they were the same quality as an Olympic bar, and we went up in quarter-pound increments on that. And then we evolved into specialty attachments. We came up with the triple threat dumbbells, which you can use in 3 different ways. But I feel the greatest thing we came up with was almost by accident. In 2010, I was sent an article where the US government was testing copper in hospitals because they were just losing their shirt on claims through the VA system and through Medicare of people getting infections. And basically, this research study showed that copper killed germs, and later on, we started discovering it also killed viruses. And basically, the US government was kind of leading the charge on this. And the best way to understand it is if antimicrobial copper was a medicine, it would fall under the US government FDA, the Federal Drug Administration. But because it's a solid surface, the US government put it under the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, instead of the FDA. Well, so in 2010, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, if I could put this on the touch surfaces of our fitness equipment, this really would protect the coaches, the staffs, and the athletes. Much easier said than done. So we went through 4 years of R&D trying to figure this out, working with copper companies. But then we also had to deal with this requirement from the federal government with the EPA that we had to get a federal registration, and we had to get registered in all 50 states. And at the same time, I'm trying to do a patent on this. Well, all of this took about 5 years. And I always laugh that if we could have projected a business plan on this, we would have never done it, because we were just shoveling money, into a black hole, not knowing where the end was. With the patent, with the EPA, with the R&D, and as I always joke, because we're near Nike's world headquarters out in Beaverton, Oregon, we truly just did it. And we finally, with God's blessings, all these things came together about the same time. We were able to R&D it where it was going to hold up and it was a viable product. We did get the registrations with the federal government in all 50 states. And we were actually awarded a United States utility patent, which covers not only the design, but the concept for this, for the dumbbells, attachments, barbells, all our touch surfaces. So we truly were the first ones in the world to do this. And going back to 2010, I started talking to coaches and fitness professionals about this antimicrobial copper. And Tony, I got to tell you, I'll be honest with you, some really smart people totally blew me off on this one. and they just did not think it was an issue or a big deal, even though we had all the science to prove what I was saying. And, along came something called COVID-19, where all these people that blew me off years ago all of a sudden are reconnecting with me and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, Tom, does this kill COVID-19?" Which we knew from similar things that it did, but there are now published research articles that do it does show it in fact kills COVID-19. In fact, the most recent one showed that it inactivates COVID-19 in less than 1 minute, kills and destroys, COVID-19. And we're waiting, for the EPA, results on this too. But I mean, to say this has been a journey, Tony, would be an absolute understatement. But, following with what other innovators and entrepreneurs have done to bring products to market, whether it was Apple, whether it was Elon Musk with Tesla, it is just years and years of banging your head against the wall and just not accepting no, and quite frankly, throwing a lot of money at something until you actually get it right. And we're at that point now. We've got it, and we've got it right.
So, on a product side question, are all of your handles, dumbbells, kettlebells, specialty bars, attachments, is the copper coating, is the copper itself available on every handle product that you have?
It is now. Is a choice. And I don't have some of those pictures up on the web because that's been about a 2-year R&D journey. And trust me, during COVID-19, doing R&D has been a nightmare because the factories are all behind, trying to meet requirements for people wanting their fitness equipment yesterday. In the whole logistics chain, is broken with getting materials. But I can now say whatever we produce, if you want it with an antimicrobial copper handle, we can do that now.
See, a lot of people, when they're getting equipment, they're always looking at, okay, how much does it cost? Yes, when you're looking at companies like Black Iron Strength, you're talking about not a budget company. You're talking about a company that's producing high-end, very high-quality equipment that's also going to stand the test of time. I know a couple of gym owners who have some of your equipment. People like Ben Prentice has your equipment.
Yep.
The old Poliquin Strength Institute gyms had Black Iron dumbbells. A guy in Toronto, Clarence Layler, has some of the old dumbbells from there. And the dumbbells must be at least probably 15, maybe even 20 years old. And they still look like they're almost brand new. You've also got a couple different options when it comes to your dumbbells. I just have on the screen here. Oh, of course, I hit the wrong tab because I'm dumb like that. You've got both adjustable dumbbells as well as custom kind of dumbbells. So a fixed dumbbell set as well as the adjustable dumbbell set. So what's the difference kind of between those two options just when it comes to your dumbbells?
Well, we call one the conventional dumbbells, which have, they look like dumbbells, but they're solid steel with a military hard chrome finish. Then we have our adjustable dumbbell system, which is actually our #1 selling product in the world. We ship those all over the world. And our mainstay on that is the Wedge 40. And you have 40 pairs of dumbbells in 12 square feet. So it's on a rack 4 feet wide by 3 feet deep from front to back and a little over 5 feet tall, you have 5 pounds to 102.5 pounds in 2.5 pound jumps. So you have 40 pairs on one system. And that product was originally designed for the college and pro teams to put it at stations so that the athletes did not have to leave the station. So if they were at the power rack and on the platform, they also had their dumbbell systems there, which is why that system's on lockdown wheels, so it could be moved in and out. But as time evolved, especially with the commercial facilities that are paying rent, people were coming up to me and saying, Tom, this is unbelievable. You won't believe how much money this will save me in rent from having 40 pairs of commercial grade dumbbells where I picked the handle and everything in 12 square feet. I had a client in Tokyo, Japan say, Tom, if I went with conventional racks, with one rack being 8 feet long by 2 feet deep, and he said I would need 2 or 3 of those, he said I would pay for your dumbbells in 2 years in what I would save from paying rent. Now, strength coaches on teams, they aren't stroking checks, for their space, but they do like having things at stations and they like the mobility. But it is absolutely a no-brainer if you're running an athletic performance training center like Ben Prentice, where every foot counts, every inch, and to have that mobility factor where you can move it depending on what the workout. These are just really great systems, for people that are writing checks, for rent. And now what we're seeing with people migrating to high-end home gyms is you got 40 pairs and 2.5 pound jumps. So your wife's going to love you for the small jumps. Your kids are going to love you. And you can see I now have the white silver hair. There was a time in my lifting, Tony, going up in 5 pound jumps was easy. I'm telling you, as I got older and older, I started really appreciating those 2.5 pound jumps where I wasn't going from 65 to 70. I was going from 65 to 67.5 for maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I could bump up to the 70. But we're seeing a huge demand for these in people's high-end home gyms. And at the beginning of your question, you talked about our product and price. And I always tell people, look, we are the Rolls-Royce, Mercedes, Rolex of the industry. So if you're looking for the low end, we're not going to be there to help you. But what you are going to get is you're only going to have to buy it one time, and your children are going to be fighting over whatever you bought 20 to 30 years from now, because it's still going to be usable, functional, and the design is still going to be current. So it's still going to be the best equipment out there. And, our big thing is, hey, with all the things we offer with the antimicrobial copper, get it right the first time and just buy black iron. And, pre-COVID, we were always able to get people financing. That's been a little bit tougher with COVID because the financial institutions don't want to finance restaurant equipment or fitness equipment right now, which we get it, but we know that's going to rebound.
It's going to rebound. I have a feeling that my personal prediction, I could be way out to left field on this, is when all this crazy world shit ends, is there's going to be a massive rebound for those, because all these people who bought home gym equipment, a lot of them is going to start to collect dust. They're going to end up returning to their gyms anyways. And one of the things that this has forced gyms to do, whether it's your large commercial, like in the US, you have your Lifetimes, your Golds gyms. In Canada, we've got Good Life Fitness. In the UK, you've got Gym Box, I think. And around the world, there's places like Anytime Fitness, which vary in quality depending on where you are. But I feel like when all this is over and people start returning to gyms are going to be forced to up their game, not just on a cleaning standpoint, which they have already to try to silence government and social naysayers and pundits saying gyms are all filthy. They're trying now to show that gyms are very clean. And now even the commercial gyms are going to have to up their game on the equipment side, because, oh, look, across the street, there's a gym that's got the greatest equipment. They've got your Elecos, your Black Irons, your Watsons, your Sorinexes, your Atlantis. When people start to see that and they start to see, wow, this gym that's private, okay, I'm paying a bit more, but I can go in, it's clean, the stuff is beautiful. It's going to force the entire industry now, whoever survives, to up their game. So a question I have looking at these dumbbells is on the website. It looks like there's 6 pairs on a rack, but on the bottom it looks like there's more dumbbells as well.
So how does this?
Okay, and then the 6 pairs that kind of come down in a tier, those are where you add on the increments.
Right. So the 4 on the bottom are your 5, your 7.5, your 10, and your 12.5, and those are your small conventional dumbbells. Then going from top to bottom, you have your 15, your 30, your 45, your 60, your 75, and 90, and then you have the magnetic add-ons on the top middle. And the top row is your 0, which basically weighs nothing. And that's so you always get a flat edge. So if you're putting the dumbbell up on your thigh, you have a flat edge on your thigh. So anytime you're using one of the base weights, you should have an add-on on there so you have a flat edge. But the top row, for example, your 15 can be 15, 17.5, 20, 22.5, 27.5, and then you're down to the next base weight where you just go right down the rows again. In the magnetic add-ons, basically the add-on or the donut part has 2 magnets in it, and then the receiving end has 2 magnets in it. So when those come together, it gives you an 80-pound pull collar. So it takes a very strong person to break an 80-pound seal. But these magnets are put in reverse polarity so that when you go clockwise or counterclockwise and you pass the magnets from the donut to the dumbbell side, it pops off in your hand. And that's why they're called poles apart, magnetic poles apart. And that's a trademark. And on that system, that whole dumbbell system, there are 5 US patents that have been awarded with the antimicrobial copper handles. There's 6 US patents. And, going back to what you were talking about, of you think things are going to come back, let me assure you, last year, which was a difficult year for everybody, we certainly held our own. But let me tell you the trend we saw since last March. We broke records in how many quotes we did last year in 2020. And 90% of them were antimicrobial copper, where people are waiting till they know what the new normal is going to be and they're comfortable stroking checks, or they could get deposits. So like you, I believe that there's going to be a boom. But where I see the boom is for the boutique small athletic performance by appointment only, they want to be different. You mentioned Good Life, Golds, whatever. These people have huge national accounts, and usually their buyers are only focused on where they could get the best deal. So I always tell the boutique and the by appointment only places, you better have something different than the big boys have. You better have a distinguishing product that is night and day difference, where they're not going to pop for it. They're not going to put a Rolls Royce in theirs. And when somebody says, well, gee, I could go to the chain for $10 cheaper a month, and you've got the antimicrobial copper black iron product, you just pull out a copy of that fit rated study, which I had nothing to do with that study, but it showed scientifically that dumbbell handles are generally 362 times dirtier than a toilet seat. You say, you know what? You can go to our competition for $10 a month less. Let me give you a copy of this study. And when you grab those dumbbell handles, just remember this is what this scientific study is showing, or you can work out at our place where the handles are cleaning 24/7, 365. They never quit working to protect you. And if you look at the IRSA statistics in the United States, women, as a rule of thumb, generally make their decision on what facility they're going to join based on cleanliness, health and safety. Now, for the males, that's not the first criteria. It's number 3 or 4. But women are such a powerful force in our industry, and their spendable income, especially, you know, the professional women, they will pay more, you know, for cleanliness, health, and safety. So we see the boom is a way to compete with the big people, with the big chains that, quite frankly, we don't see. Maybe Lifetime may come around, maybe Equinox, but the other chains that are the lower end, I mean, we don't, and I'm not attacking any of these chains. It's just looking at their model. We don't see the Planet Fitnesses, the 24-hour. We just don't see them going to this. I'd love for them, and I think it would really make a difference for them. And I think they could easily charge $1 or $2 a month more by going, you know, with some higher end stuff. But so far, we've had zero success, you know, with the chains. Where we really do well is with the smart operators. And I'm going to give somebody like Ben, you know, Prentice an accolade, you know, very sharp operator. One of his proteges down in Orlando, John Davis, you know, huge customer.
John's another good guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at, you know, your Clance Laylors, you know, we did PK Subban's, you know, home gym when he was still playing for Montreal, you know, because Clance was working with him. So our client list reads like a who's who of college pro teams or pro athletes' home gyms. And right now, they all want antimicrobial copper.
Yeah, like one of the reasons why I'm doing the equipment manufacturers right now when it comes to these Q&As is because pro sports have started back up. Depending on where you are in the world, gyms are open or they're closed. But it's also a way of highlighting the high end, the top quality, where you spend your dollar once, and you're not going to have to spend it again. Once you have it, it's good for life. Like you said, it's going to basically become an inheritance piece later on when you have these dumbbells or any other product from any of these companies that I'm talking to, whether it's you, Sorinex, Atlantis, Watson, going to be trying to talk to Prime as well, because the higher end equipment. One other reason why is I'm trying to highlight high end equipment companies that are not made where the virus came from.
Correct.
This is my way of doing.
Well, we say Asia. We're politically correct. We just refer to Asia. And I have a joke, that says exactly what you're saying, Tony, is if you can't afford to buy it right the first time, how on earth are you going to pay for it the second time? And I can't tell you, because I've been doing this now for 20 plus years with Black Iron, people will walk up to me at trade shows and they'll say, you know what? You quoted me 5 or 6 years ago, and the biggest mistake I ever made was I didn't go with your equipment. And now I'm kind of stuck for at least a decade with the lower end inferior product. But, I always welcome these people back, with open arms. I mean, just because you didn't do it with us the first time, we're good if you want to do it, later on. We're always here for you.
Well, it's like using like the two industries right now being hit the hardest are kind of your health and fitness industry and your restaurant industry. And I always like to draw kind of some parallels between the two. You've got, when it comes to equipment, you've got, just like your restaurants, you've got your chain restaurants, you've got your chain gyms. You got your boutique restaurants, you got your boutique gyms. And when it comes to equipment, it's the same way. You go into any of the large commercial gyms, they basically all have the same equipment, regardless of what company they are. It's always almost the same equipment. It's nice that it's fairly standardized, but it's just like a restaurant. Oh, when you go into a Wolfgang Puck, a Gordon Ramsay, Grant Achatz type restaurant, you're spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $100 or $1,000 for dinner that night because you're paying for the Rolls Royce. People who buy a Rolls Royce aren't watching the commercial for a Honda Civic. They're looking for that Rolls Royce for a reason because that's the status car. That's the car they want. It feels right. It gives them that feel that they've always wanted. And as you said, when it came to the demos, Black Iron is the Rolls Royce. You know what your market is. You're not chasing after every garage gym. You're chasing after people who want the best of the best.
Right. And
that's why I wanted to get you on for one of these, is to explain what Black Iron is, especially to coaches who might, like the primary group of people who are going to end up seeing this are students of Charles Poliquin. I know in the past you guys did business together.
Yeah, we did.
That he went with another company. But like any equipment he ever recommended was always some of the most expensive, but he always said, buy it once, use it forever. Why spend your dollar a second time if you invested the first time in the proper way? It's like an Eleiko weightlifting bar. They still showcase bars of theirs that are from it seems like World War II age, and they still spin nicely. So when it comes to your actual dumbbells, what kind of options are there for people when they're purchasing the dumbbells? I mentioned briefly at the beginning that you have customization when it comes to that. You've got the different handles. So maybe give a little info for people as to the differences between what the Black Iron handles are, size, revolving, and whatnot, compared to your normal dumbbell, and why it's so much more beneficial to go with that.
Well, we have on our dumbbells, we have 6 handle choices. 1 3/8 inch diameter is the standard handle. And then we go to 1 3/4 inch thick fixed. And then we go to 1 3/4 inch thick rotational. So you could do those 3 handles in chrome or those 3 handles in the antimicrobial copper. Now, for years with the antimicrobial copper, we could only do the 1 3/8 inch diameter because that's all we could get the EPA certified copper manufacturer to do for us. But there was so much demand for the thick, we actually committed to a certain dollar run to get the 1 3/4 so that we could do both the chrome and the antimicrobial copper. That's why there's 6, handle choices. And there's something else I wanted to cover, because you mentioned, Charles, Poliquin, and, Charles and I were very good friends, and we stayed good friends, until he passed away. And, that was a really sad day for all of us. But, Charles started out with us, but I do, for the record, want to state that the reason he went a different direction from Black Iron is we were not willing to pay him for his endorsement. So he actually made a business decision that whatever he recommended, he wanted to be compensated for. And there were 2 reasons we didn't go that direction. One is we sell to the U.S. government, and I'm subject to an audit from them. So you can't pay somebody and have a different pricing structure for the U.S. government. The other thing is we felt that was a conflict of interest, is that, hey, we've been doing things with you and for you without compensation because you believe you're the best at what you do, and you're using us because you believe we're the best at what we do. But he actually switched his business model, that what he was recommending, he was being compensated for. And I don't think he was transparent about that with the people that he was doing those recommendations to, of, hey, I just want to state that I am being compensated for this. Because I would get a lot of the Poliquin people calling me saying, hey, Tom, how come Charles is no longer recommended Black Iron? And now he always said nice things about Black Iron, till his last days.
Right up to the end.
He never, ever said anything negative, but he just wasn't pushing it at his seminars and things like that. And I just told people the truth. But, we have a lot of his former people that stayed, with Black Iron, the whole way through, and are still ordering to this day. But I did want to make that clarification, why there was an evolution in the direction he went.
Yeah, and it's like I said to you over Instagram. I was like, in my lifetime, I'd love to have several different sets of dumbbells from various companies. Why? It's a different feel. It's a different look. Slightly different people are going to like different things and whatnot. And it also, if it's a pipe dream type of thing, hey, why not have a couple different options? Oh, you've got 5 different 5 kilo or 5 pound or 50-pound dumbbells. And you got 10 people in the gym who are strong, all needing it at the same time. Hey, look, there's no lineup for weights. Everyone can use stuff at the same time. And people, if they've got a preference for a certain feel in their hand, they can get that preference. And it's like, that's one of those pipe dream types of things that I think everyone in the back of their head would love to have.
Well,
like, Black Iron is definitely...
With COVID-19, Tony, I can only recommend one handle, and you have 3 choices on it. But in a commercial setting, I don't know why on earth you wouldn't put antimicrobial copper handles in. I mean, it's like, hey, guys, look at the devastation that this pandemic has caused. And now you have all the variants out there. And, we've known antimicrobial copper has worked, for thousands of years. I mean, it's the way people used to purify water, was by putting water out of the river into the copper vessels. They didn't know why it worked, but they knew that if that water sat there about 24 hours, that they didn't get sick, they didn't get diarrhea. So I mean, the history of antimicrobial copper goes back thousands of years. And the other thing I didn't say earlier, not only is it a miracle material at protecting you, but it hits all the current checkpoints in society today of it's 100% recyclable, so it's green, and there's no harmful chemicals in it. I mean, there's nothing that's going to hurt you, and there is such a small delta difference in price between antimicrobial copper and not doing it in antimicrobial copper. I mean, people love variety, so we have 3 different diameters, but boy, after COVID, I don't know why anybody wouldn't go antimicrobial copper. I mean, I'll have people order for their gyms, their home gyms, and they'll say, well, I don't need the antimicrobial copper because it's just me. And if I'm getting to know them and having a little banter back and forth with them, I'll say, hey, Joe, hold your hand up in front of your face because this is the most dangerous weapon known to mankind to transferring germs. Are you telling me your hand has some special power to it where you're not carrying germs when you work out? I don't care if you're the only user. I would still recommend antimicrobial copper to protect you. Because once junk starts getting down in that knurling, that cross-cut pattern, you could take a toothbrush with Clorox and you're not going to get that garbage out of there. And that's what that Fit Rated study showed, where the average dumbbell handle's 362 times dirtier than the toilet seat. And that study went viral on the national news when it came out. And, anybody that wants any of this data, can contact me, by email at tom@blackironstrength.com, or you could go to the website, blackironstrength.com, and fill out a contact form, or just call the number and leave me a voicemail. I will get back with you, and I can email you as much science and data as you want to see on this topic.
Yeah, like back in early December or late November, I believe you sent me an email with a lot of that information. And there's everything right down to a video on there that's informative, breaks down the science of it. If you go through PubMed, you can find some of the data as well on how copper is antimicrobial in nature. And as Tom was saying, it's definitely natural. It's just a metal. That's all it is. It's not like you're going to be ingesting it. I don't suggest you walk around licking things to begin with, because that's just so stupid to do in the first place. Don't let small children try to swallow your dumbbells. If they're able to, you got some sort of freak child to begin with. But the other great thing that Black Iron has is the cable attachments. You've got everything from your regular D handle to the, I just call it when it comes to the row handle, I call it a V bar, the triangle. I can never remember the perfect technical term. You've got everything from straight bars, long, short, the wide handle pull down bar. And they've even got a special package for all this where they've got all their handles all in one. I believe the storage rack itself is either wall mounted or it mounts onto a cable.
No, what some of the college pro coaches wanted, and that attachment management system evolved, where coaches said, everything we buy from you, we want to have a home where nothing ends up on the floor. So we originally put that attachment management system on the back of our adjustable dumbbell systems. But then some coaches came back to us and said, look, we sometimes push those against the wall where people can't access the attachments. And we actually have one client said, hey, Tom, we took that off and did a wall mount. They said we just went out and bought hardware at Home Depot And I said, can you send me a picture of that? And they did. It was beautiful. So we either sell it as a wall mounted unit where the holes are drilled and you just drill it into a wall, or it's going to come on the back of one of those adjustable, dumbbell racks. But yeah, the attachments, especially since COVID, the antimicrobial copper attachments have just been flying out the door. I mean, so fast that even when we build up inventory, we're behind with the orders. When the inventory comes in, that's out the door, and we're building them literally as fast as we can. But yeah, those are a huge seller for us. Thank you for bringing those up.
So you've got the best problem to have. You can't even keep it in stock. It's flying out as fast as you're making it, which is a great problem to have, especially these days. So you are in the U.S. You're on the West Coast. You mentioned before that you're close to Eugene or Beaverton, Oregon, where Nike's headquarters is. Have you been able to infiltrate, might be the wrong term, but have you been able to get in with Nike to start to make it so that you're a little bit more mainstream?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story on that. First, let me clarify that the world headquarters for Black Iron Strength is Vancouver, Washington, which is not Vancouver, British Columbia. Vancouver, Washington is right across the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon. So I'm about 18 miles from downtown Portland. But the factory is in Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't produce out of Vancouver, Washington. We have a very technical, high-end machining factory in Tennessee where we have a contract, with them to build our equipment to our specs. And from there, everything ships all over the world. They have an international shipping department, everything. But the funny story I was going to tell you about Nike is years ago, one of their attorneys called me, and they were doing one of their new fitness projects. I don't know if it was the new Lance Armstrong room or whatever. And they said, hey, look, we want to partner with you and on this new fitness project. And I said, well, can you define what partnering means? And they said, well, and I knew what the answer was going to be. They wanted us to put in all of our equipment for free, which again, legally we can't do because of the U.S. government and being subject to an audit. And I said, I played along with this. I said, well, just out of curiosity, and this is when Phil Knight, was still actively involved in Nike. And I said, now what do I get in return for that, as far as this partnership? And there was dead silence on the phone. And finally, I broke the silence and I said, look, if you're willing to put in writing that for 10 years, I can use the Nike logo on all my advertising, and if you give me 24/7, 365 access to that fitness center, because that is a very secure campus. I've actually been out there, with security guards and everything. But I said, if I have a client that flies into Portland, I want to be able to take them and show off our equipment there. I said, I'll see if my attorney can work something out where I can legally do this. And the person goes, there is absolutely no way we could do that. And I said, well, so this is a one-way partnership where you get free equipment. I can't use your logo for advertising. I can't bring people out there. I just said, why on earth would a sane person do this? And his response was, because you'd be part of Nike. And I said, you know what? I appreciate the call, but the answer is no. But I'll get very similar phone calls. I'm not going to mention which professional teams where they actually think they are entitled to free equipment. And I'll just say, you know what? We don't do that. I mean, I will tell you, when you see black iron equipment someplace, whether it's a college team, pro team, whatever, they paid for it. You know, and that's just the way we legally do business with people.
Yeah. And just to give an idea, some of the collegiate teams that Black Iron and Tom work with, you've got Michigan State, the Ohio State, University of Miami. You've got the Boilermakers. So these are all shown right on the.
Purdue's a huge customer of ours.
Yeah, and a couple other major organizations that everyone in the world will recognize. And I'm not making this up. It's right on their website. I'm looking at it right now. You have the United States Navy SEALs. So the best of the best use black iron strength for a reason. NASA uses it. So anything NASA uses, it's going to be for a reason that, one, scientific, two, has a good purpose, and three, they're not going to have to reinvest again in the same thing. Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl back-to-back potentially on Sunday, unless Tom has something to say about that.
Well, we always joke that we always root for the team that's got our equipment. Where it really becomes an issue is when both teams have our equipment. But in this case, root for Kansas City because they're the ones that have our equipment.
Yeah, it's like I like that. I like how you're loyal and you're true to your word of not just being, okay, we're transparent as to why we don't give free or deals. Full disclosure, before this, I asked Tom if he'd be willing to, if he's able to, for a limited time, give some sort of deal. And he was transparent that because of the audit process, anytime you're dealing with the government, if you give someone a better deal than the government's going to crack down on you like hell on water.
They crush you.
They think because at the end of the day, they think they're entitled to everything for free. That's why they take our taxes.
Well, the U.S. government actually does pay for their equipment. It's just if they find out somebody got a sweetheart deal that you didn't offer to them, they're going to slam you. And there have been fitness equipment companies out of the USA that have been fined. And if you don't pay the fine, you're going to lose being on the government schedule. And you don't want to lose not being able to do business with the U.S. government because they are the largest purchaser in the world for stuff, for items.
Yeah. And so when it comes to as well as since how our main thing talking about today was the black iron strength products, as well as primarily getting to know why they use the antimicrobial copper, they have a tagline for it. And it's just get fit, not sick. And right now in the world today, there's never been a more pertinent time for that one 4-word statement than right now, because the whole world, whether it's gyms just trying to stay open or people just scared for their lives, that is the most pertinent thing right now. Be fit, not sick. Being fit makes us more resilient, as well, because their equipment, the antimicrobial copper, is 24 hours a day through a natural process, destabilizing and breaking down the microbes that are bacteria and viruses. It keeps it sterile. And a sterile environment in the gym allows us to have clients in, allows us to keep our clients healthy. A sick client is a client that's not coming in and paying for their membership or one-on-one training. So it's beneficial in both ways. It keeps our clients sick, keeps us paid. And then down the road, it helps to pay for more and better equipment again through places like Black Iron. So it's really a nice cycle of it's a nice microcosm of the economy right there.
Well, in the winter, I mean, people will go in and work out the gym, pre-COVID, but, they're getting colds, they're getting the flu, and even if they've had flu vaccines, there have been years that flu shots were 20, 25, 30% effective. Well, the flip side of that is the other percentage side, you got a 60%, 70% chance of catching what the person that used that dumbbell before you put their hand on. If they coughed in their hand, if they sneezed, if they wiped their nose, they're putting that on those handles, and it's going to live a little while, depending on the germ. Some of these germs can live for a week on these surfaces. So, you know, I have to look at all this data and all this information, and it is scary to know just what's out there on these surfaces. You know, so it's something to really pay attention to.
Yeah. And so as we start to kind of wrap things up with Tom, one of the other things that I always wanted to ask when it comes to equipment manufacturers is, how are you planning to continuously innovate going forward at this point, considering you're already known for being a Rolls Royce in the fitness industry, and a lot of companies, when they get to that, they get a little complacent, and then other companies can start to knock off what they're doing. So how do you at Black Iron plan to stay ahead of the curve, and at this point advance the curve further than it already is?
No, it's a great question. And we are always, you know, it's the old always be innovating. We are, I don't mind sharing because we've showed it. We are, you know, going to do a plate, you know, a 45 pound, a 25 pound, a 10, a 5, and a 2.5 that have antimicrobial copper touch surfaces. And we've actually, we've finished prototyping it, and we were ready to launch and got hit with COVID. And all of a sudden, two things happened on that project where we could not get a handle on the supply chain, and we could not get a handle on the pricing. So, you know, my wife and I just made a decision that, you know what, we're not going to any trade shows right now because there are no trade shows. We're just going to hold.
1 second, I just turn on the light.
We delayed the plate project till things open back up, and then we'll start showing the plate, putting it on the web, and we'll actually start taking orders. And we actually do have some clients that we know their projects are 1.5 to 2 years out that have had us quote these plates. And we put the caveat on it that the pricing on this, we think, is close right now, but it could change. And they just want, you know, numbers. Then there's some more attachments that we want to bring out. But again, with COVID and the factory being so far behind, we just cannot tie the engineers up at the factory within any prototyping right now. And, you know, I used to fly back to the factory minimum once a quarter, sometimes every month, you know, where I would have meetings in person. And we've just, with COVID, we've had to put all that on the shelf. But I promise you, there are more things coming out, you know, with Black Iron Strength. So we are going to be innovating, and you will see more products.
So I'm just going to say on that note, as the new products come out, I'm going to try to get Tom on for when a new product that's great that comes out and he wants to really highlight it. I'm going to try to get Tom on for another one of these. It won't be probably as long as this. It'll just be, okay, let's highlight this, show it off, if you got a sample of it or whatever, you can show it right there. This way people can start to see the high-end stuff when it comes out, even if it's like, okay, it's not out quite yet, but you can pre-order and we can get people kind of interested in it, even better. Because I want to help all these companies and the gym owners, trainers, be able to improve the product we're all offering. Because I want it so that general population, other professionals take us more serious, because we can be a massive help to society. We already know that we can help people's health, but now we want to be able to prove that we're a benefit and that we aren't non-essential in the eyes of policymakers, that we are actually an essential service and an essential product or service for all of our customers, for the betterment of society, not just high-end sports teams, but also mom and pop just trying not to lose their sanity, having to homeschool 5 kids while running a business, while also running their household. So that's what I'd like to give my kind of guarantee going forward with Tom, is trying to, anytime he's got something that he wants to highlight, we're going to try to get him on to show it off a bit, and hopefully we can generate some interest for him. As we come to a close here, how can people get in touch with you, Tom?
Well, our contact information, again, it's Tom Grace, Grace, Grace. And the easiest email is tom@blackironstrength.com. Also, what works is tom@gracefitness.com. That's easier to type in my first name at my last name, the word fitness, tom@gracefitness.com. And there's also the contact form on the website, which is just blackironstrength.com. And there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. So, whatever you need, if you need quotes, if you want to talk about what you think you're interested in, talk about future projects. If you need the antimicrobial copper information, I have 2 rock solid emails that I could get out to you very quickly that are very educational, great video streams, and just easy to read, information that's not so scientific that you can't, understand it. But that's the best way. The what?
I said it's science for the layperson. Everyone who's in a position to be able to purchase equipment should be able to easily understand it. It's that simple to understand. And the other way you could get in, Tom, is through social media, which I'll include all of this in the description of the video below, so that everyone's able to follow, see what Black Iron's equipment looks like. It's beautiful. The other thing we both forgot about when it came to your dumbbells is there's an engraving option
for the logo.
Brand. Yeah, for your logo, for branding purposes.
Yep.
And it looks like that. The only way to put it looks excellent. It's engraved right in there, as well as the weight. You can see various examples on their social media and their website of both.
Well, and we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. And, my wife does a great job handling all that. And, she's always going over that with me of, hey, so-and-so needs an answer to this, or, whatever. And, so she is a champion on social media. So, please follow us on all of those, venues, because she works really hard, and we put out current information on all of that stuff.
So from everything that we discussed today, if you can in one statement say what the number one priority of everything we spoke about today would be for trainers, gym owners, facility operators, what do you say the number one focus for them should be from everything we talked about today?
If you're going to be adding something new that we offer, whether it's dumbbells, attachments, kettlebells, bars, whatever, I would say your number one priority with what we've just gone through with COVID-19 is going with antimicrobial copper products should be your number one priority to protect the health of your staff, your clients, your members, anybody that's coming in and touching those surfaces. You want to be protecting them 24/7, 365.
All right. Well, I'm personally going to thank Tom for taking his time today for this. I learned more as well, especially after the email giving information and going through your website multiple times. You can all the information when it comes to his contact information, the website, so that you can learn more about black iron as well, will be included in the notes below on YouTube. The great thing is they're very approachable, they're easy to get in touch with. And yeah, so Tom, thank you for your time today.